to What Arty Noobs with General Disturbance. This is an Object 260. It's a Tier 10 Soviet premium heavy tank. It's located on the north spawn of Mines Encounter, and this one's under the command of Jamie2006. Now this tank has a rather nice 122mm gun, capable of 440 alpha, and it's also fairly well armoured. And in fact, this is the reward tank you get for completing the full set of personal missions. In fact, if you look at this tank, you say, well, that hull looks suspiciously like an Object 252, and yes, they do share some of the similarities. In fact, this was the tank that was actually designed but cancelled. Oh, we got a nice hit there on the AMX 13105. Low roll, but 411 hit points. That's a nice shot. 121B, very difficult to hit, but he's not loaded. He's loaded the heat and pumps one in, gets the hull. Now he's taking an unusual position, but I think he's actually going to make that unit work. Yes, he hit the Rhinocerente with the heat round right through the magazine area. That's probably affected his autoloader. And then he goes for the lower plates and gets a nice hit into him as well. Oh, that's good. He got an average roll actually with that second shot. Trying to get a shot on the 121B as he disappears off, but he goes for the... Oh! The AMX M454 blocked that shot, and actually, well, he got some assistance, but he can get that run serenity. Yep, 470, a high roll this time. Well, this tank was actually designed, a nice shot to the lower plate of the AMX M454. It was designed in September 1945 as sort of like the next step up from the IS-3/IS-7, and it was actually cancelled in favour of the T10, which they did go ahead and build. As you can see, it does have some of the design cues of an IS-3, some of those from the Object 252, which of course it's related to in a sense. Okay, Superconk. He's got somebody behind him blocking him there. That was unfortunate. In fact, I think that was an IS-7 that was blocking him from going back. Okay, can he get this one? Yes, he does. He can get through the side armour of the Superconk. Okay, he's got a nice pike nose, which does allow to block some shots. But of course, as you know, with the pike nose, you have to keep your front at the enemy, because if you try to angle, you actually make it easier for the enemy to penetrate you. He's managed to push those guys back. They don't want to come forward now. They know that there's two tanks here they can't deal with. And the Leopard, oh, well, he took a big hit there. He's still loading the heat. Goes for it again. Oh, the Leopard's gone. The kill shot went to the IS-7, who poked out, side scraping the rock. Okay, these guys are not paying attention, and our teammate blocks the shot. Yeah, that Cranvan, that was very bad manners. Punches straight through the upper plate of the 277. Low roll though. I think he's going to do it again. He's using this gap to good effect, but I'm afraid they've pulled back so far now he can't get a shot through there. They've just gone round the corner. But the Object 277 is now one shot and he's out the game. Now this means that he can now push this corner. There's only 5 enemies left. Potentially he's got a high caliber. He's at least got 20% of the enemy hit pool. Goes to the lower plate of the Superconk and gets it. That was a high roll for 459. This will be a kill shot if he can get it in, because the Cranvan is trying to bully him out of it. But he takes it anyway. And the Cranvan must have been in reload, and he was trying to protect that target for himself. But it didn't work out so well this time, did it, Mr. Cranvan? Okay, he's got guys behind him. Yes, he took a round up the rear from a T110E4, and it hurts. It's an average roll. The ST2's gone as well. There's only the Leopard 1 over here, and he's going to take another round from that E4 if he's not careful. But the E4's been tracked. And he pumps one into the engine bay, gets a low roll for 394. Now the E4 is now turning, and he's turning towards our Cranvan. And oh, that went through the cupola, and he takes the kill, and that was the end of the game. Well, that was rather nice. Here's the end of battle stats, and that was a first class tanker for Jamie2006 in the Object 260. He got a spotter badge for spotting at least 1,000 hit points of damage. He got a fire for effect for doing more damage than hit points to his own vehicle, and a bruiser medal for getting at least 5 critical hits. He got 5 exactly. He also did manage to get the high caliber for dealing the most damage in that game overall, and he also got a Confederate as well for hitting more of the enemy than anyone else on his team. His win rate was high, it was 7,138, and despite the fact that that Cranvarm was not being very fair and was actually blocking him, or at least not blocking him, but he actually came out in front deliberately to take the kill away from Jamie. And when Jamie was trying to get that super conk after doing all the work on him, then the Cranvarm tried to block him from shooting at the super conk by covering him even while he was in the reload. And of course, Jamie had to do a sly shot on the move and got it. So very nicely done that. Let's have a look at team score. Highest damage was 7,365. The nearest player to him was the Leopard 1 on the enemy team, who only managed 4,107. And the third highest damage in the game was actually the STP-1 on the enemy team with 2,809. You can see that Cranvarm didn't do a whole lot of damage. In fact, actually, it was a bit of a nuisance, and he didn't get any kills in the end. But when it did come to kills, it was actually shared between the T110E4 and the IS-7 on Jamie's team. And Jamie managed to get 2 kills, but he shared that with the Leopard 1, the T100LT, and the T110E4 on his own team. Nobody on the enemy team managed to get more than 1 kill. When it came to base XP, it was Jamie, yes, because of all that spotting he did, he really racked it up. He got 1,262, and that's not just for the fact that he was the high scorer, but the very fact that he was spotting where the enemy were in his little peeking through that gap, and he was taking all the risk, because if the enemy were going to fire back through that gap, he was going to be the person who took the shell. But his spotting was actually allowing the team to do a lot of damage. So he got 1,262. The 121B got 907, and the T100LT got 906. The 121B picked up a Spartan in that game. He fired 19 rounds. Every round hit the target, but only 18 actually penetrated. 7,365 hit points of damage, of which 916 were done at more than 300 meters. So yeah, the majority of the damage was done at very close range, but it kind of pushed the enemy into that little corner on the south side of the hill, which forced the enemy into that area. And of course, when he corralled them in there, it made it easier for other people to get shots on them. He got 4 hits received from the enemy, only one of which actually penetrated, 3 non-penetrations, and 1,220 hit points of damage blocked by armor. The one that penetrated was the T110E4, and it came when he actually presented his rear to the T110E4, going after the ST2 and the other tanks that were up the far end. He wanted to get those as kills, but sadly he was just a little too late and took around from the T110E4 for his trouble. But of course he got revenge on the T110E4 and managed to stop the Cranvarm from getting that kill, which was rather good because he hit the cupola at distance and took him out the game and claimed the kill. He also damaged 9 of the enemy, killed 2, did 1,183 hit points of spotting assist, and he got 96,158 credits, but he did fire an awful lot of heat ammo. Of course, he needed to, tier 10 and all that. So he actually ended up with a loss of 27,623 credits. And he did get 7 bonds, 1,893 XP, 7,572 for completing a mission, 95 for this being a premium vehicle, but because it's a reward vehicle, you don't get as much XP as you would from one you bought. And he took away 9,560 experience points altogether. So the Object 260, I didn't get to mention much about it during the actual game, but it is one of those tanks of the series of the 252 and the 252U and the tanks that never made it. They never became heavy tanks per se. They were just designs that were eventually rejected without a prototype, and well, the IS-7 wasn't rejected without a prototype. There were prototypes for that, and they actually did build one, but in the end they felt the T10 was going to be a lot easier to build, and therefore they went with that. Let's have a look at the armor profile for this thing. Pike nose, as you can see there at the front, which means obviously that you want to keep your front to the enemy, because then you can see 15 centimeters of armor, but it's actually got 288.7, so very strong and a very good chance that the shell will ricochet off. The lower places you can see here though, 15 centimeters of armor coming out as effective armor of 258, so because it's well angled, it's actually giving you more. And of course the turret, because of that shape, it's very similar in shapes to the 252U. Again, there's kind of skillet or flattened skillet turret. And here, look at the armor of that there. It's 170 impacted armor, but because of the shape of the casting, it actually comes out over 400 millimeters of armor. In fact, you're seeing there 448, it was about 450 at one point, I think it was showing. It's huge armor on the front of this vehicle, very difficult to penetrate. So really, ideally, you do not want to engage one of these in the turret frontally, because it's very difficult to actually pen. The only place that you might get a chance of penning is, of course, the driver's ports on his front, where he's got that hatch. It's in fact effectively impacted armor of 45 millimeters, but because it's so flat, it's very unlikely your shell will actually go in. As you can see there, it's virtually flat, so a shell coming in directly here, it's either going to damage the viewports for the driver. I don't think you're going to get a pen though, because it's so flat that it'll literally ricochet off. You could hit the cupola. 90 millimeters of armor there comes out effective armor of 213, and the top of the turret 55 millimeters effective armor 271 or thereabouts, but again very flat, very likely to get a ricochet. Side armor, well, side of the turret again is very heavy, 21 centimeters here, and at the rear of the turret you can see it's 100 millimeters. They're much easier to get through the rear of a 260. On the sides we've got spaced armor. You can see that if I hold it there at the front, you can see there's the spaced armor in this area here. If a shell comes in, it hits that angled armor and it just bounces down into the tracks. It doesn't go through the vehicle. In fact, actually, there's only a narrow gap that you can shoot through, and I think most people don't even bother to try, or if they do, they actually go between the bogies, which is a little easier to do. But you can see it's effectively 100 millimeters on the side armor, but you need to place the shell exceptionally well, otherwise it's just not going to get through. So it's a very narrow gap, that gap there, very difficult to pen. Side armor here again, it's angled, 15 centimeter coming out at 234, and on the rear of the hull it's a lot lighter, 70 millimeters coming out at 110. So the rear of a 260 is possible to penetrate. The sides one, you've only got a very narrow strip that you can do it in. The front, very difficult. The only way you can actually penetrate a 260 is if he angles at you, and then of course you can see the 15 centimeter drops to only 224, and it's a lot easier to punch through that flat surface than it would be if you were firing from the front and you're actually getting 300 millimeters. So yes, a lot easier. So let's have a look at the modules. Okay, driver up front, as you'd expect, he's got a big fuel tank right next door to him, and that's obviously not so good. There's ammo racks on both sides. Again, the spaced armor covers them, so again, it's very difficult to get a pen through that way. In fact, you're much more likely to set these ammo racks off if you can punch through the rear of the tank rather than punching through the sides. But if you've got enough punch and you can get through that angle, then you've got an ammo rack there that you can aim at, and it does extend for virtually the entire length of the turret. There is, of course, the ammo rack, the ready rack in the bustle, which is a nice thing to aim for as well, because remember, you can punch through the side armor here. We've got the loader on the right hand side on this tank, rather unusually, and the gunner is on the left hand side with the TC directly behind him. He's also got the radio. So yes, the arrangement is actually strangely odd for this one, but it's very similar, I suppose you would say, to future Soviet tanks in terms of the fact that the gunner and the commander in the turret and the driver up front, which is, well, vaguely reminiscent of a T-72 today. So I suppose if this was actually an autoloader, then this might be the configuration for a T-72. Engine at the back, he's sandwiched between two fuel tanks, and transmission at the rear. As you can see, as you know, it's very easy to penetrate the rear, so you either get the fuel tanks or you go for the ammo racks on the shoulders and try and get it that way. So that's where all the modules are on the Object 260. So I hope you enjoyed that replay. If you did, please give this video a like, do subscribe to my channel, leave a little comment down below because it feeds the algorithm, and thank you for watching.